Welcome to a new Daily Top AskReddit video. Today's topic:
what happens if the president ignores the Supreme Court? Nothing happens unless Congress holds the president accountable. Well, I guess that won't happen. Nothing happens to the president, but whatever the Supreme Court decides can still be enforced by other agencies, which is very likely. Theoretically, impeachment. But if Congress is unwilling to initiate the process, or unable to follow through with it, nothing happens. Yeah, unfortunately last term he showed everyone that impeachment only means something when they have a shred of decency or care about the public image. Trump has no decency and considers all publicity good publicity, so impeachment has no teeth. Doubly so now that the courts ruled in favor of making the president immune to prosecution for anything he did as president he can claim was for the good of the country as president. Susan Collins will be disappointed and might even sigh. I wouldn't be surprised if she were even concerned. She may not say anything, but her brow might furrow. This is Trump posting asking this question on the toilet, by the way. Not enough language errors and random capital letters. Supreme Court sends a strongly worded letter, maybe with emojis. With lots of angry emojis, pouting, 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 pouting. Maybe 14 emojis. Constitutional crisis, kind of. He's technically violating the Constitution by ignoring the authority of the judicial branch. However, unless Congress is willing to impeach and convict, there's all SCOTUS can actually do about it, a fake. Yes, this is what the term, constitutional crisis, means. When you have the chief executive ignoring the Constitution in direct, overt, and unquestionable violation of his oath of office, there isn't really anyone who can remove him, save for perhaps a military coup. Note that impeachment as a conceptual remedy is no better, even if Congress was not currently populated by spineless traitors who are also ignoring their oaths of office. Even if Congress impeached such a president, she could still simply ignore the rule of law, and there would be no clear remedy. In other banana republics, this has led to, for example, multiple people claiming leadership of the country simultaneously, and/or civil war, etc. It really sucks that I find myself needing to explain these concepts to my children now, and how we may need to try to flee the US if, when the fascist leadership escalates, to rounding up dissidents or mixed-race people, for example. I miss the days before the Nazis won here. The idea is once impeached and convicted he has no authority as president anymore. No one should listen to him and the vice president becomes president. If the military still takes orders from him, then the United States as democratic republic is over anyways and the Constitution literally doesn't matter. It feels like everything has been set up to fail at this point and law and order and the US Constitutions means absolutely nothing. Law and order means something to us peons. We can't get away with shit. If I'd done even the tiniest fraction of a sliver of the criminal bullshit Trump has got away with for his entire life, I'd have been blackbagged and thrown in a van, never to be seen again. This is the long and short of it. Maybe the Praetorian Guard will do something about it. Yes, and you can thank a lot of people for getting us here. Mitch McConnell for pumping up Trump and refusing to all Obama to nominate a justice as he was absolutely allowed to. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who would not retire after getting cancer a second time and instead died in office and gave us another conservative justice. Kevin McCarthy, who wanted to be speaker so trotted off for Trump's endorsement after he lost the 2020 election and basically made him a political force again. Joe Biden, who promised he would be a transition president and then couldn't let it go, leading to a mad scramble 50 meters from the finish line. Sure, there's more, but if any of these people hadn't done what they did, we might not quite be here. Then we can confidently say that we are in fascist dictatorship. We are in an electoral monarchy. It may or may not also be fascist, given how shapeless fascism is. It has common elements that Umberto Eco identified which have broad acceptance. You can skip right to the list of the 14 traits, but the rest of the essay is worth the read too. IMO. So much for checks and balances. Here's the Wikipedia definition of fascism. A far-right, authoritarian, and ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement, characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation or race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. It's useful to consider how many characteristics of the current regime align with this definition. Nothing will happen to Trump because the enforcement mechanism is a congressional impeachment and Congress will not remove Trump from office. But it isn't like Trump is openly saying that he's going to break the law today. That was what, this weekend. I'm actually surprised Trump has shown some restraint from doing even more so far. It's pretty clear he has the green light to go as far as he wants to and we are all helpless. Optics are important for his power. This is the only thing he's really clever about. He can't just do whatever he wants, even if it feels like he is. That's why he spreads misinformation. Nothing really. Abe Lincoln ignored the Supreme Court following a ruling that told Honest Abe to unsuspend habeas corpus. Nothing happened. Someone else did too. I think Jackson. Whoever did said, they've given their ruling, now let them enforce it. Andrew Jackson famously quoted, John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it. There is no contemporaneous record of this quote. The first time it appears is in a newspaper 33 years after the court ruling, long after Jackson died. SCOTUS also didn't require the Jackson administration to do anything in that case, as that case was about Georgia law. SCOTUS did not ask the federal government to intervene. There was no order for Jackson to ignore. Historically, Trail of Tears. And the president responsible gets put on the $20 bill. Underrated comment. Let him enforce it, was Jackson's response, and he moved a sovereign nation off their land, who had a constitution, agreement with the US. A genocide ensued, unconstitutional and unstopped. Andrew Jackson is proof the US always had fascistic tendencies. I stand by my statement that Manifest Destiny was the grandfather of fascism. If it worked as intended, Congress would impeach and remove. However, right now nothing. Republicans want their king. If it worked as intended, this would have been over years ago. Nothing has ever happened to presidents who ignored the Supreme Court. Trump potentially ignoring the SC would not be a novel occurrence. It's been clearly demonstrated that the US presidency allows you to do pretty much anything you want, to little consequence. The entire country is basically one or two decisions away from totalitarianism at any given time. Only if you spend the 40 years post-Reagan amassing wealth and poisoning the Supreme Court and Congress. It's not just a given that the president is king, they have put real effort into stealing the legitimacy of the rest of the US's powers. When I was a child in the 1960s, Republican Senator from Ohio William Saxby was warning then that in response to the Cold War we were increasingly and systematically removing the checks and balances from the executive branch. Soon afterwards, Nixon was identified as implementing the imperial presidency, but he was constrained by Democratic Congresses that hadn't lost power since FDR. Every administration since then has increased the executive power, and the reason people were okay with it was the argument, no one who would abuse this power could be elected president. Then we elected Trump, but even after that, the Biden administration did nothing to strengthen the guardrails around the office. An amendment to the pardon power should have been pushed day one. No one in the office ever works to give up any of the power they've acquired. Carter made some gestures but not much. Basically nothing if the military doesn't intervene. Andrew Jackson ignored the courts and we got the Trail of Tears. In a normal timeline with a functional Congress they would impeach him and kick him out of office. Since we are living in idiocracy, nothing will happen and they will pass a law making his birthday a national holiday instead. Well, you're the shithole country, now. No argument there. Always has been, meme. Removed. I've got 300 in a heart attack. That's a sucker's bet. Dick Cheney is still alive and he doesn't even have a heart, both literally and figuratively. Nearly every actual student of constitutional law knows what we're looking at. It has been commented on and studied for quite literally hundreds of years now. There's no hammer. The founding fathers did not build a system that could withstand this level of depravity, and even when they could envision it, they were certain no American public would allow it to continue. You are here. The enemy from within, starting at the top. We've been shown that nothing will happen and it's all been pomp and circumstance until now. Wild to think that this is just the start and where things will be in 20+ years. No more decorum or order, just memes for the lulz, from the most powerful people on earth. Same thing happened with Ohio and our state Supreme Court. Republicans just outright refused to comply and nothing happened. The Supreme Court was even mostly conservative too. We've had to vote in 2 illegal elections now. The one Vance won and the one Marino won. I honestly can't wait for the generation of YouTuber, podcaster, congresspeople that is coming. Government is a clown show, and it's never going to be serious again. Official policy will now come from a 15-year-old with a burst fade perm doing a wheelie on his bike in traffic as the singular statement, "It's just a joke, bro," and "Skibidi Riz Ohio," as Lil Uzi Vert echoes in the distance. We take to the streets. Republicans control all branches of government right now. There's basically no checks and balances anymore. So unless one of those branches stands up to Trump being a dictator, all we can do is sit and watch. The people are the last check. The same people who consist of 50% who like him, 25% who can't read, 60% who lack critical thinking, and 60% who have never done hard labor in their life. Those people. Yeah, lots of confidence there. Americans aren't made for it. Need some lessons from the French. He doesn't need to ignore the Supreme Court, because the GOP already purchased it for him. Nothing. The American courts and politicians have already shown that they do not have the balls to do anything about this monster. He will lie, cheat and do whatever the hell he wants. Consequences be damned. How anyone could have believed this chronic liar's bullshit will forever be beyond me. At this point, the only thing he could ever do to help people is to fucking die. For checks and balances, the public employees can disobey the president's directive. Congress would be expected to start the impeachment proceedings, but that seems a long shot. Really, the root cause of the issue here is not Trump, it is a spineless GOP Congress drunk with power, cowering from being primaried, and ignoring their oath to uphold the Constitution. What they fail to see is they will be powerless in short order. Each branch must exercise its power to retain it. Now if you compare this to Watergate, the Supreme Court held, and the Congress, including the GOP, held. Nixon, the executive branch, was contained and constrained and he had zero options, he had to resign. Of course we know Trump is incapable of putting the country first. The big lie, actually seeded in 2016 not 2020 as most believe, shows you his intent to manipulate the public for personal gain.